It's full of armchair Imagineers. Tiki here.
And Blue Dragon 5.
Welcome to the finale of a movie month where we enter Dante's Inferno. Joe Dante. Joe Dante's Inferno, that is. The loony filmmaker with a small yet immeasurable army of B-movie fans eager to catch the next showing of Mant. Grab a seat in our Rumble-Rama theater. But be warned, there are gremlins in the projection booths as we roll the B-roll on Joe Dante month with tonight's feature presentation, Small Soldiers. That's right, Dragon. It's like Toy Story, but live action, except not really, because it's a lot more weird and fucked up.
Pretty much.
All right, so Dragon, I know you have mad nostalgia for this. I have mad nostalgia for this too. Like, this came out, obviously, I think for both of us, it was like, oh my God. Like, we just had Toy Story a few years before this. And now it's like, it's literally like Toy Story in real life. It's like, oh my God, they did it. The Mad Men in Hollywood, they did it. So Dragon, this was a big childhood movie for me. I didn't even realize it was rated PG-13, to tell you the truth. So what say you? Like, it's probably one of my first PG-13 movies ever, outside of maybe something like Jurassic Park.
Yeah, I never gave much thought to what my first PG-13 film was. Honestly, I can't really recall.
I feel like a lot of the ones that I saw back when I was a kid are stuff like Star Wars and Indiana Jones, where it's like technically it probably would have been rated PG-13 if it would have come out nowadays. But
yeah, because that was like literally the Raiders was before they had the PG-13 rating,
right.
which we don't get until after Temple of Doom and Gremlins. So, but again, Dante correlated there with the Gremlins. But anyway, yeah, actually, now I think about it, I mean, I think logically, my first PG-13 film probably would have been the '89 Batman. Would have been
that
the
makes
Batman
sense.
film. So all of those were PG-13.
Right?
So,
yeah, that too. Yeah,
I mean, at the very least, Batman Returns. That one we know is PG-13.
Very PG-13.
Oh, extremely. I'm just dropping some Batman Returns, folks. That correlates to some stuff later in our background. But anyway, so Small Soldiers. Yeah, this was my first Joe Dante film. Yeah, it was. This has always been a nostalgic touchstone for me. It was a well-worn VHS, to put it in other words. And as a kid, it was the edgier Toy Story as a war movie and in live action, which is like a trifecta you don't really see coming.
Mhm.
I don't, I mean, look, I don't. Here's the thing: I don't have the constitution for something like Chucky. I don't. I appreciate the making behind that sort of thing, but that was always like, if there's a spectrum, on one end you have the old wholesome favorite that is Toy Story, all pure sunshine and rainbows. On the opposite, complete opposite end, you got Chucky, utterly terrifying. I don't even want to think about it. In the middle, you have this. This was the happy medium between the two.
Totally.
So, I mean, I adored the design work and, the bond of Archer and Alan and how that whole thing went. The toy line. I mean, Tika, the big thing for me for this nostalgically, too, I mean, again, that correlated with Toy Story was much like Toy Story. You had the actual toy characters from the film that you could purchase and have.
Oh, yeah.
Small Soldiers had that, too. And looking back on it to a degree I did not even realize. That blew my mind, if it is to be believed. I mean, I had a few of the figures, and for me, what I wanted the whole set of the 12-inch, kind of like exactly like they were in the movie, and I had Major Chip Hazard and Archer, and I assumed, okay, well, that's all they made because the other ones they made were the shorter guys. But apparently,
this is a hot take, but I actually think that the army side of things is, like, generally speaking, they have cooler designs than the Gorgon Knights do.
Well, I don't know. I think they're both great in different ways, clearly, but they're very different. Like
I mean, I love the design of Archer. It's just the supporting Gorgon Knights. Like, we'll get into that. They're kind of one of my flaws with the film, just as a whole. But
anyway, But yeah, they regardless, like the fact is, from what I understand, all of them, even like both the Gorgon Knights and the Commando Elite, they got like full scale action figures, which blew my mind when if that is to be believed from what I've heard and what I've seen, like people like put online in the years that have followed, like oh my god, they made the whole. I as a kid, had I gotten the whole set, I would have been obsessed with them. I'll tell you that because it would again, it's like be another Toy Story in terms like oh god,
Totally,
you can
totally.
have all the characters from the movie exactly like him. Anyway, so I mean, looking back on the film, years later, with kind of the eyes that we have after seeing God knows how many movies, Small Soldiers, look, not a perfect film. It's got writing issues. Had four writers. That tends to happen, but it hits me in all the right nostalgic sweet spots, unequivocally. With every here mainly for me, the sweet spot of the film for me it still holds up just tremendously well is everything involving our toy line specifically and our toy characters. Like the thing that played even better for me in the later years was like the corporate satire, with the corporate cynicism that Joe Dante flourishes in, that he has flourished in with all his films, kind of making fun of the suits and the bigwigs that make the decisions that have tortured him, put him in the Inferno on Looney
It's
Tunes
also
Back in
kind of like
Action.
a who's who of 90s comedy. You got David Cross, you got your Phil Hartman,
You got Jay Moore, yeah.
Michael McKean doing some voice work.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, you have all the members of Spinal Tap.
Right, right.
Anyway, so I mean the production values, just ultimately, I think this is one of Joe Dante's most impressive films, just from that standpoint.
I honestly think it might, like, from what I've seen, I haven't seen all of his work, but from what I've seen, I think this might be his most technically complex movie.
I mean, that's what I'm saying. I think it quite possibly. I mean, well, then again, the original. It's like a historical kind of period thing where if you look, Gremlins was inventing the technology, but this
Uh,
still was like incorporating all of it, though. That's the difference.
I
Because
feel
this
like
had
this is kind of like perfecting the technology that Gremlins invented, though. That's my thing.
Well, yeah, and you also have Gremlins too. So it's, but I hear your point though, and that
Uh-huh.
yes, I mean the fact is we have like puppetry of a different variety and like smaller puppetry, which you can't
I think
rescale that
the fact that it's smaller is what makes it more impressive, honestly.
exactly. Which again could not be done back then
Uh-huh.
because when they did the puppet work on Gremlins, they had to make giant gizmo heads like for close-ups. Like they could not do
Right,
it that
right,
small,
right.
but here they could actually do it that small. Anyway, so
Okay, so
this
now I'm just thinking like for close-up shots, they just use the one walk-around Chip Hazard character.
oh,
Can
imagine if they did.
you imagine if they did it that
That
way?
thing is just so disquieting, isn't it?
I
It's just like
know.
when
God.
it walks into a room, it's like, oh god, Cable
That is
from
just a meet and greet that nobody's gonna want to attend.
just like Cable from Deadpool 2 just walking through. Anyway, so yeah,
Oh, if
just
they ever do
again,
a Small Soldiers remake, Josh Brolin would not be a bad Chip Hazard.
well, again, he'd have to be a toy though, but yes, he
Well,
would.
I'm saying vocally.
Sure. Oh yeah, in that case, yes, then absolutely. Yeah. Anyway, yeah. So again, just all of that, the cell is enthralling even now, going back to what Small Soldiers was. So a lot of fun looking back on it. Okay.
All right, and Tom Beast has some comments here. He says,
Oh.
to me, this was the first Toys Gone to Life movie. He says, scratch that second
Yeah,
movie.
it's definitely the second. I'll tell you that much.
And then he also says that's intentional that the soldiers are meant to be cooler. The Gorgon Knights were originally meant to be cartoony.
Yeah.
I've got some tone issues with the Gorgon Knights and how cartoony
Okay, it's
they
not
are.
Gorgon Knights. It's Gorgon
Gorgon
Knights.
Knights?
Yeah, like they
Okay.
come from Gorgon, so Gorgon Knights.
Okay. And then also, yes, R.I.P. Lionel Hutz from The Simpsons. This was Hartman's last film. I know, I know. Like it's almost eerie seeing him in a movie this close to when he died. Honestly,
Yeah, and they got like the little tribute that plays to him.
Yeah.
The outtake. That it's the whole. Yeah. Oh, for sure.
Yeah, his death was honestly one of the saddest deaths of the '90s. I think.
I mean, it was tragic in every way imagined.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So Dragon, I gotta say, this is gonna be a really interesting conversation. Because while I do agree that all the toy stuff does hold up very well, and I do like the dynamic between Archer and Alan,
See, I knew you were gonna make that
of
joke.
course I'm gonna make that joke.
And I hope it's not for the reason I think you're making that joke.
Dragon, I gotta tell you, unfortunately, like I did not dislike this by any means on a rewatch. I didn't by any means.
You mean you disliked how you stomped over my background with your point, but go on.
Well, no, I'm Dragon. This is my thesis. I'm intentionally bringing this out before we get into background. This is
Okay.
part of my thesis,
I'm
buddy.
sorry. It
All
sounded like
right?
you. I thought you led with your thesis. That's why I'm
I
asking.
led
Go
with
on,
my
please.
thesis in regards to like my
Nostalgia.
nostalgia,
Okay. Okay. I'm sorry.
and
Please
this
go
is
on.
my feelings currently.
Okay.
All right. So yeah, unfortunately, Dragon, I really do think like pretty definitively, I would say this is 4 out of 4 when it comes to like the movies that we have reviewed. It's between this or Gremlins 2 for the last spot. In Gremlins 2, there's definitely a debate to be had. I just really, really like how wacky and out there Gremlins 2 is, and it really doesn't take itself seriously. With this, there's a couple problem areas for me. The two big ones are I'm not a fan of the supporting Gorgon Knights, pretty much any of them. The one with the Peter Lorre voice is fine, but that's just because he's got a Peter Lorre voice. I just tonally just don't really think they fit. Archer is wonderful, and it's great to see Frank Langella do some voice work, and I love me some Frank Langella.
We all do. We all do.
So that like Archer himself is a wonderful character. Don't get me wrong. And literally all of Chip Hazard and his crew are great too. It's really just the supporting Gorgomites that I really don't I don't think they hold up all that well. And Dragon, I'm sorry, but this is gonna sound harsh, but this dad has some major Buck Cluck energy.
Wait, you mean obviously not Phil Hartman, you mean the
No,
kid with Dunst.
no, definitely not
Stewart.
Phil Hartman.
So you mean Stewart then?
Yes.
Yeah.
And what I mean by Buck Cluck energy is Dragon, this dad is a dick.
And here's the thing.
He is just consistently just putting down his son the whole movie. He has no faith in his son at all to do anything. And I understand that the son is, there's that backstory of him being a delinquent and getting kicked out of school and all that. But Dragon, honestly, if this is the way your father is going to talk to you and speak and look at you, I don't blame the kid for being a little troublemaker. I really disliked the father in this one, Dragon. Just every time he was on screen, I was just like, okay, dude, you're kind of a jerk.
I mean, I faulted that more with, I think they dropped the ball with the kid's backstory, and that kind of, let me this way, I think we have some contrivances that we need like a whole boy who cried wolf thing, and it kind of didn't go well.
Yeah, okay, and I'm glad you bring that up too. I definitely think this movie doesn't need to be almost 2 hours long. I think it could have been a clean 90 minutes and been fine. 100 minutes, 90 with credits.
It is 100 minutes though. It's like an hour and 40. It was like an hour 45 minutes.
It's an hour 50.
Oh, really? Okay.
So I'm saying they could have shaved off 10 minutes is what I'm saying. I think there's some weird pacing problems here and there. It's like I think we spend a little too much time at the house, and then once the big action sequence starts happening, even that I think kind of starts to drag in terms of pacing, but we'll get into it. So at the end of the day, I think there's some pacing problems with this. I think there's some tone issues with the supporting Gorgmites. And I really don't like the dad character. The dad character to me is just a bit of a dick.
Okay.
But other than that, it's like I would give this a solid 7 out of 10, and I wish I could rate it higher. It certainly looks good. It's the effects are certainly there. Chip Hazard and Archer pretty much make the movie, just their whole dynamic and rivalry with each other. So, Drake, I want to like this more than I do. I really do, but I definitely can't say it's better than Matinee and Looney Tunes Back in Action. And I think
that's stiff competition. Like Matinee is stiff competition for any
Matinee is in all likelihood probably going to be my favorite Dante film.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. This is really solid, and I certainly still have all the childhood nostalgia for it. It's just one of those movies where it's like looking back on it, I can clearly say yeah, it's fun. Not a masterpiece though. All right. Anyways, Dragon, get into it, man. What's your background?
All right. So again, this was an early film, like one of the. I'm not going to say the first film, but it was very much one of the early films for the newly found DreamWorks.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so Spielberg, basically the idea is like, I assume the script probably kind of entered, because a lot of the DreamWorks writers that eventually work on a lot of the animated DreamWorks, at least half the writers on this, they worked on some of our favorite DreamWorks films. Like for me, we had Ted Elliott and
I
Terry
noticed
Russell.
that they also did the Pirates movies, the
Yeah, they
first
did
three at least.
Shrek, El Dorado, of course. El Dorado, being of course one of the Road to El Dorado being one of my favorite films. So that's
Uh-huh.
I love that. So again, so the point being, a lot of the DreamWorks writers were kind of cutting their teeth on some of the other things. So assumedly Spielberg was kind of calling in, kind of testing some people out, and keeping around the people that he liked. So in that spirit, the script probably enters through that vein. It's like, who could I get to direct this? Who are you looking for success? Who in the vein of Spielberg's kind of next generation of directors, who could we bring in for this? Well, Spielberg knows a guy, Joe Dante. Made those funky Gremlin movies. Bring him in. So anyway, so originally, from what I understand, Joe Dante, he was going to tailor the film a little bit more to a teenage audience, like make it direct like a PG-13 film, and then you have kind of the Batman Returns factor at play here, where he's making, he's making the edgier film. And then it's like, hey, we bring a lot of toys, like Hasbro and everything, to consult and like behind the scenes and consult in the making of our toys and making them authentic and everything, and getting everything right in our product placements and everything. But with those product placements and marketing comes like, we got to kidify it. We got to sell these toys, man. We got to make a PG-13 film that both that the kids under 13 can also see.
So I think that right there, that right there is probably why this movie has tone issues.
A little bit, yeah. So that's why there's a little bit. I think it could have been a lot worse in terms of like him having to like. This was not like a Dante's Inferno situation, but I think it was more like Dante's editing room, perhaps. Which like some things, according to Dante, like some things had to be cut out, like explosions had to be toned down and stuff. Plus, you had
given the Barbie scene, I know they're not technically Barbies, but you know what I mean.
I know what you mean. We'll get to it.
I mean, they still let him get away with quite a bit.
Yeah. And of course, you can get away with it because they're not human. Anyway, so scale back is kind of leads to somewhat of that awkward position of like, hey kids, come see Small Soldiers, and we're shooting nails at people.
Right. So I certainly remember it being marketed towards me, Dragon. Like it was certainly on like commercials for like Nickelodeon and Cartoon Network at least.
So that's the thing. And of course, it's like the Batman Returns Happy Meal situation where this thing had a Burger King tie-in, and again, there was kind of like a weird situation.
Oh, I remember the Burger King tie-in. Yeah, I do. Yeah.
Yep. Anyway, so let's see. So Stan Winston's company did the effects work on this. They did all the puppets and everything there. And of course, oh my goodness, Stan Winston and company, they had a ball doing this, because at heart, any effects guy worth his salt loves monsters and action figures. So this was like a
there you go.
So what Stan Winston did is he and his crew, they kind of studied at kind of the feet of Hasbro here, and they kind of looked at, okay, what's the range of articulation? How would this work? And we got to figure out kind of a balance so our characters can actually move a little, basically as the most high-tech action figure out there without again, they're not moving like Ken from Toy Story 3, he's not that limited, like we're a little extra worldly there. Anyway, the point being, so they're doing a lot of really good research there. Over roughly 237 figures were made, practical figures were made for this film. That's over 1 metric ton of polyurethane. It's a lot.
That's crazy, yeah.
Yeah. And so let's see. So ultimately, it was kind of a combination of puppets that were done in camera, so no blue screens. And the puppets that you see, they have these little rods that were panned out, but they were all done, either through radio control, animatronic, or just done practically on the set, or stop motion, or CG, which was the early ILM. And essentially, so apparently there's going to be a lot more puppetry in the film. Joe Dante wanted to do the whole thing with puppets, but unfortunately, just technically, and just the fact that
we're going to have to wait for Avatar 2 to get a whole movie with animatronics, right?
Yep, for sure, yeah. No, but seriously, it's just the fact that Dante, he wanted to do that. It's kind of what he had done on the Gremlins films before, but Gremlins are a lot different. Essentially, you can do more of a kind of a hand.
I think a good rule of thumb for animatronics is, generally speaking, the smaller they are, the more difficult they are to have precise, intricate animation.
Yeah, because remember, the first Gremlins, you could have had some technically being hand puppets with just extra controls, and then Gremlins 2 added the whole radio kind of control thing and all that sort of. Anyway, The point being, you want to do the whole thing with puppets, not technically possible. And now, the advent of, at this point in time, Joe Dante, he has access to CG for the first time. I think for at least one of the first times. And it's like, okay, I can actually make this look convincing. And this is like post Toy Story, so it is absolutely possible in DreamWorks riding Pixar's coattails on that.
Uh-huh.
So anyway, so it's kind of, so basically like a third of it's practical puppets, and then the rest is again kind of an animation of some sort, mostly ILM. And of course, the irony of this being Stan Winston went from doing the Jurassic Park films, which were animatronics or on such a huge scale, to little itty bitty ones.
Right.
Small, one could say. So
probably almost as challenging as the dinosaurs in some ways.
I mean, each puppet, like in one scene, there could be up to as many as 23 puppeteers.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, man. That's a lot of intricate movement to keep track of within one shot.
And that's like 3 to 5 puppeteers per character. That's a lot. Jerry Goldsmith did the score on this, which is great and really special because Jerry Goldsmith did the score to Patton, which is why we have that Patton scene.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Of course, sadly, last film for Phil Hartman. Let's see. The marketing tie-in, as I mentioned, again, was numerous. You had the toy lines, which were to scale, and apparently the whole set. Where was I for that whole set? But still, it was amazing. They had a very impressive PlayStation game at the time, which was it was in universe and very impressive. It's the fact that it was like a whole, like it would have been like what the toy line is. But
that's funny.
However, it still would have been from the Gorgon Knights point of view, though. So again, they were still technically the good guys, even though if it were in universe, it would have been reversed. But still, it was like looked like Doom, man. It was like again, it looks kind of creepy to me. Like I don't know if as a kid if I had the constitution to play that game. It looks a little scary. Anyway, so and also they had the infamous Burger King ad. Anyway, lastly, over the years, there actually was talk of a reboot of Small Soldiers, which I had no idea about. And now it's been axed because apparently the rights they fell under the whole Fox arrangement ultimately, and what happened?
Yeah, Disney pretty much killed it.
Yeah, apparently, yeah. I mean, I get it. It's like probably a smart move, but it's like a part of me is just really curious. Like, man, I wonder what would have happened if we did come back to the Small Soldiers. What of all the reboots that people throw out there? You have so many bad ideas, but you know what? I don't think we would have hurt the Small Soldiers brand by going back to it.
I honestly feel like it's the type of IP where it's like people have nostalgia for it. It hasn't been like overblown or oversaturated at all. You could probably write off some of the Toy Story hype, honestly, just like they did with the first movie.
Yeah, there is like
I honestly don't think it's a bad idea at all for a reboot. I really think it'd do well if they had the right people on board for it.
I'm not saying they should
be a James Gunn Small Soldiers.
Oh god, that'd be so good. I mean, if you're gonna get anybody, the only person that could follow in like a Joe Dante shoes, I mean, it's either Chris Columbus.
I feel like James Gunn is kind of like a Joe Dante spiritual successor when I think.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Instead of Roger Corman, he had Lloyd Kaufman. Anyway, so but yeah, that's the thing. It's kind of funny. There is kind of like a built-in, like there's like a little hair of a sequel at the end of this, though, of like the Small Soldiers are going to South America.
There is
to fight wars. So I mean, there is like, well, if they did a sequel, that'd be that's a James Gunn sequel I'd want to see. It's like the Suicide Squad, practically. Like, oh god, Small Soldiers fighting actual war.
Oh my god.
See, now that's James Gunn. Let's give him that. Let's give him that movie to make.
I mean, unlike dinosaurs fighting in wars and becoming military weapons, this actually makes sense.
That's the thing. The Small Soldiers are shipped like action figures to the kids overseas.
Yeah.
And then at night they break out.
Oh Jesus Christ!
And then they kill everybody.
All right, I want to see this movie now. Try again.
Anyway, so let's talk about the film before us, though.
Yes.
All right. So should we start with the corporate satire stuff?
Yeah. Let's get that out of the way. Sure. Of course, some heavy hitters in here. We didn't even mention in that cast lineup. We didn't even mention Dennis Leary.
Yes. So I always liked. Here's the thing. I liked the corporate aesthetic as a kid, not fully getting it. Like, man, that's a nice boardroom. Look, it has a few figures on the shelf. It's a nice table. Look at that place. Anyway, but again, now it's like, oh my god, it's a very RoboCop-esque setup of like.
So here's the thing. I feel like as a kid, this was like, but when are we gonna get to the Small Soldiers?
Just
like I see them there, but they're not moving and they're not talking. But now as an adult, I really appreciate all this stuff from the satire point of view.
Yeah. I mean, I love that. It's like Globotech is bought. Kind of like like the OCP in RoboCop. It's like they're inserting themselves like Amazon is right now into everything. Amazon or Disney, take your pick, whatever big conglomeration you want. They're getting their hands on
Can you
everything.
imagine an Amazon Disney merger? Jesus Christ, please never let that happen.
Well, from what I hear, like someone's already making a big merger with some tech, some tech related thing right now.
Well, I know Elon Musk and
Yeah.
Twitter. Is that
Well,
what you're talking
yeah,
about?
that's what I
Yeah.
was referring to. Yeah. Anyway, but yeah. So the fact that like we're getting into the toy business. So it's kind of like I think Joe Dante was doing. He's kind of taking the whole violence and media thing he's been dealing with for years. Again, the reason Joe Dante's practically half the reason we have the PG-13 rating.
Oh,
So the violence and media debate that he's always on the receiving end of basically applied to GI Joes and kind of corporate, basically corporations corrupting the innocent. We're corrupting toys, making them implements of violence, and forget learning. We want action. We want to punch people. So yeah, I always loved that pitch meeting scene. I love that it says a lot about our two creatives here. We have Irwin, we got Larry. Larry's a yuppie prick. Irwin, the seriously delightful role for David Cross. He's very earnest in this role. So rarely do we see David Cross playing it really earnest.
yeah. David Cross is usually just the king of cynicism.
Yeah, but seeing him as like the sweet guy who's like kind of stumbling over his pitch with like the cardboard cutouts and everything, which is endearing. Okay, he's got kind of a neat pitch here, but again, it's a solid pitch. But the moment he says learning, next. So, so the Commandos and the Gorgon Knights, which again, I like that. It's like concept versus aesthetic, where you have like the really cool aesthetic and the presentation. Look at this molded figure, and I got a really cool commercial versus like, well, here's a neat concept for the Gorgon Knights. It's like
Uh-huh.
just how could a pitch go wrong? So Gilmar's, yes, Dennis Leary though. And there was this behind the scenes joke I think you'd really like that Dennis Leary made, because Joe Dante loves to do kind of the lighthearted behind the scenes gags. Like he had like Chip Hazard and Archer in like little tiny director's chairs and stuff, like talking. But you had Dennis Leary joking like, "Yeah, I actually never worked with them. I had put in my contract. I don't share any scenes with the Commandos or the Gorgon Knights in the movie because I had a bad experience with the Muppets once."
Oh God.
It's really funny. Anyway. But yeah, I like that. He's kind of this bigger than life. He's basically Joe Dante's had this thing in all of his movies where he has kind of like the big corporate bigwig, like the money man, and
Yeah.
many times they're played kind of lighthearted, like or like like again, like literally at the end of the movie, he's going to write checks to solve everyone's problems, like Mr. Wizard, Wizard of Oz.
Pretty much, yeah. And we literally just epitomize that there. I was cracking up at the ending with those checks, Dragon. That was a
But
great gag.
I just love how again, like it's kind of evolved from like we had like the sweetest can be John Glover version of that. And then we just have like the '90s, like the nice, like deeper '90s version of like, okay, I'm
It's
just gonna.
such a great way to be like, okay, like this is how all these characters are going to be just fine. No need to worry. It's just like tying up loose ends in a way that's both very efficient and very funny.
Yeah. So I just love that we have this guy who essentially he's instead of like being a big delightful kid, he's a spoiled kid in a suit who's playing it really cool. And of course, Dennis Leary's rant is priceless about the wait. Did they actually? It's like every kid ever has always had this thought. And this is what I mean with the whole big kid analogy. It's like, well, wait a minute, do they actually do that? What do you mean? Do they burst through the box? Do they do all the stuff in the commercial? Well, no. It's like these are rants about I'm tired of all the false advertising. He lays it out and he gives them 3 months versus 6 months, which
It's a
means
good mission statement of making an action figure,
yeah, no, that's
Like
that's
I want to see a toy that actually does what it looks like on the box or in the commercial.
our setup is just so great. It's like he wants to make the Buzz Lightyear that can fly. That's what he wants to do.
Exactly.
So that leads to the X-1000 mistake, which oh boy, like putting military technology into interactive toys.
So oddly enough, I almost kind of like this almost kind of like a Frankenstein gag for me. It's like, oh no, you gave it the wrong brain. You gave it the wrong brain.
Abby someone. Yep. So, of course, I still drool over this now. You know how much of a gadget nut I am. I'm kind of an assembly line nut, too. So that opening of, like, seeing the construction and the assembly line of the
Oh, it's
toy.
all
Like,
great.
oh,
Yeah, yeah.
look at the little servos
And
spinning in
Dragon,
the
I also
back.
know you're a collectibles nut as well. So just the product,
Yeah.
just seeing all of them in their, in their action figure packaging and all that, it must have been just a joy for you.
Seriously, how great was that packaging, though? Look at
Oh,
that.
it's awesome fucking packaging,
Plus, it
dude.
ties into, like, the commercial. He's breaking
Tell
down of the
tell me
thing.
that when they sold those on the shelves, it was in that packaging.
Well, that's the thing. They had a few variations on it, but at least one of them was literally that packaging.
Because that I would just buy that packaging and just never take it out of the packaging. That packaging would be like a pivotal piece of that that display.
Yeah, oh, for sure. Anyway, so I'm drooling over that construction scene, which is a good opening credit sequence, by the way. And also overall, I mean, I love that. Again, it's kind of it's shades of Toy Story and '90s in the '90s toy industry, which is what we've embodied with that
Totally,
opening. Is kind of
totally.
our sell here. We're thinking about it. They kind of homaged it in the opening here. You had like a flat shoe, like a little kind of farting, like belching little thing that basically got him in the room for the meeting. The Road Warrior figure at the time, there was a figure called the Road Warrior, and it was like the first toy in the '90s that had like all the buttons, essentially like Buzz Lightyear has, and that inspired
Oh,
Buzz Lightyear.
interesting.
So
Now,
that's like
this wasn't a Mad Max thing.
that's the thing. I can't recall. I think it was
Because
like
obviously the second Mad Max movie is literally called The Road
I know
Warrior.
that's the thing. I mean, when did the second Mad Max come out?
Oh, I don't know the exact year off the top. I think like
That's the
late
thing. If it was
80s.
before '95, there is a chance, but I'm doubting it.
Yeah, late 80s. So it was definitely before 95. I
Well,
know
that's
that.
the thing. I mean, it's possible. Like I don't know. It might have.
Uh-huh.
I looked at it once, but I forgot if it was literally from that movie or not. The point being, the Road Warrior figure had the buttons and like the interactive kind of buttons and stuff like that that you could push and had like voice box and everything in there, and that inspired Buzz Lightyear. And again, this is kind of like the infinite item takeoff of that. Like, well, it went full tilt with the interactive quality. And again, it's DreamWorks chasing that Disney Pixar success in ILM, just like
Oh, most definitely. Most definitely. Hey, toys that come to life, we can do that.
but again, it's like them using okay, well, we can't maintain that for a
They
full
can't do the
feature
exact
until
same story. But so Dragon, honestly, from a marketing point of view, I legitimately respect the hell out of this movie. I really do.
I mean,
Because I feel like this movie they put lightning in a bottle that was Toy Story, and they found a way to rebrand it and to have it be different enough to totally feel like its own thing, while getting the people like you and me who were absolutely just born and raised on Toy Story still invested in it.
yeah, I mean, essentially, it's like, what if we took the whole "so play nice" and made that into a movie? Which essentially they did. You know, again, they used the big feather they had in their cap as a company, which is let's use ILM. ILM essentially is our Pixar image computer. Let's use that to basically bring Toy Story into live action. Now let's throw some Gremlins, some shades of Gremlins at it, just to make sure we get the folks. Okay, so again, let's just talk about. I don't know if you want to jump anywhere else. I was going to bring up some of our story problems that you were kind of looking at with your thesis.
Yeah, go for it. Go for it.
So, okay, because we get introduced to Alan fairly early in our
Alan.
Anyway, because we get introduced to Alan early, Joe Dante. I think I've noticed something in Joe Dante's work. It seems like his teen stuff really was on the decline after Matinee. I think Gremlins was probably a kind of an introductory point, maybe at its height, and then over time it kind of went to he grows up in Gremlins too. But Matinee is when we fully like okay, Matinee is like the last great teen story that Joe Dante.
Matinee is like I kept saying it during the podcast, but honestly, the way that movie's structured, it kind of had some shades of American Graffiti almost.
Exactly, and what I'm saying here is that it feels like. I think just kind of fell out of touch, or either that, or you had you had Chris Haas, and you had perhaps better writers for teen related stuff on those films. Or in this case, it's I don't know, just it felt really kind of like we're pandering, and I'm scratching my head at like we could use another.
The teen stuff in this movie, I didn't even mention it in my thesis, but yeah, it's not great.
Let me tell you the worst teen thing for me in the whole movie. Okay.
Okay.
Christy is crazy as a bag of cats.
Yeah, you're not wrong.
I mean, she's dating older guys as like a point of pride. She's having fun killing the Gwendy dolls. She's turning on a dime. It's like Kristen Dunst has gone bonkers in this film. It's nuts.
She just like I don't know. I kind of like the eccentric parts of her character.
They
What
come out
I
of nowhere, though.
what I wasn't thrilled with her character was honestly just like, oh, okay, like she's got the boyfriend, and Alan has to be jealous, and
Now, to be fair, they did like trim that down so it would be like a non-issue. But the fact that it was there, though, was like, why are we bothering with it, right?
no, that's what I'm saying. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
It just, and I also kind of feel like it's another example of a movie that frankly doesn't need a love interest, and it's the '90s, so we gotta have one.
Oh, it's mandatory in the '90s. You cannot
Yeah,
make a movie
yeah.
without, unless you're like a shooting star or something. So again, Atomic Beast makes the point she's probably holding up a lot of pent up aggression. I mean, where do you see a teenage girl keeping all those Wendy dolls? Well,
Oh
that's the
God.
thing. She has that weird, almost bipolar line practically, where she's like, I always hated these things. Like, why do you have like
Why are they all over your room? Why are they like
yeah?
the main point of decoration in your room? No one's forcing you to
I
keep
mean,
those dolls.
I've heard of like girls with like the cutesy dolls, but more like Cabbage Patch or like collectible like little plushy dolls, but like a room full of like and the fact that you hate them, like how does that work?
Like, is your father forcing you to keep them in the room?
Yeah, I mean that's the thing. It's not like a cute like oh, daddy keeps giving her plushes, so she's got a room full of plushies or something. No,
Right,
this is
right.
like no, let her go. And apparently the parents keep buying her the Wendy dolls, but it's like you think she'd say no at a certain point. I don't know. It's weird. Anyway, let's see. So beyond Alan himself, though, talking about Alan, Alan has an inconsistent backstory. So, and we're doing this so the parents think he's like it's like a Michigan J
Ooh,
Frog.
he's such a troublemaking kid, Dragon.
So that's the thing. Basically, we're doing all this so the parents think it's like a Michigan J Frog. He's going crazy things. Boy who cried wolf. He's not. Um, the like I don't need like the whole build, but everyone in town somehow knows. Yeah, I heard about you got kicked out of like 10 schools, didn't you?
Okay, it's so ridiculous that whole thing is like such a big point of gossip in the town.
Let me tell you what would have fixed that, Tiki. Here's what I would have suggested. Not that I'm in any position to give Joe Dante script notes, but here's what I would have suggested. I would have suggested, you know, of Alan briefly, very briefly, far too briefly for my taste, given how much we build this whole thing up, is that Alan, he had done like a few small things, like a little bit of graffiti, like he flooded the toilets, and the worst thing he did was he called in a bomb scare on Parents' Day or something. Now, if we just stuck with one thing, like if he mentioned, I called in a bomb threat once, that if we just did that, then we would have had cemented in, okay, that is expulsion worthy. Do you have like the whole boy who cries
It's
wolf thing? He has
expulsion worthy, but it's also like
yeah,
okay, like
a
you
prank.
get how a rebellious kid would do something like that.
That's what I'm saying. You check off a lot of boxes that would have been really convenient. Where okay, it's something kind of dangerous. They would have to go to a shrink for. When in reality, it was just like a prank. They maybe have his parents not come. Who knows?
Uh-huh.
And to all of that, just the fact that and his parents would again, that's what would have given him the reputation of a troubled teen. Like, oh, he did something kind of crazy, like kind of Columbine or something. Like, yeah, something like which again in the '90s and kind of bridging in the early 2000s would have been kind of prevalent thing. Would have
Okay, my
concerned
my
everyone.
my other like I totally agree with you on this point for sure.
Yeah.
My other big problem with how they do his character is that at the end of the day, Dragon, he's just a perfectly average, nice kid. Like as far as characterization goes, there's nothing that really screams like Bart Simpson rebel. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah. He just seemed to me he's really helpful. He went out of his way to help his father with that
That's
little
what I'm saying. That
weapon.
to me is kind of where the Buck Cluck quality comes into play. Is like, I feel like on some level his father is like genuinely embarrassed about him, and he's doing the best he can.
I mean, yeah. Tiki again. Just really for me, it just stems to the point of like, okay, the parents are we're in a position here. We don't need the parents until Act 3, which means they're just gonna be kind of hanging around until then. And we have to come up with ways just to kind of get them out and to have them not believe the kid. And even when we have those dust up scenes, like, well, there's no follow up to the discourse we just had. He's just like, the kid's like his wrist gets his hand gets cut up and like he's accused of stealing selling power tools and everything. Like, what happened? And it just feels like okay, the father's in a position where he has to think, okay, the son's causing trouble and he's lying to me. But again, it just feels it feels less of a father's characterization thing. It feels like it's because we have to engineer this plot point that he comes off that way. That's what it feels like to me.
Sure,
I don't know.
sure.
Because I think up to that point, it's like, okay, so he's done bad stuff that we just haven't done a good job of saying, what at this point. But he's done stuff to make the father not trust him. It's basically,
it's just the fact that the characterization just doesn't shine through. Like, if that's how they wanted to write the character, that's fine.
Like, we're being told stuff, we're not seeing it.
Right.
Which is, we're not seeing him do a Max Goof
or even if there was more of a tension of really establishing that he was a good kid that made a mistake and people won't let him live down his mistake, which I think that's kind of what they're going for, but I just don't think they establish it nearly as well as they should.
I mean, look, there was a deleted scene, but even the deleted scene was he left gum on a water fountain. That's not really psychopath territory.
Yes.
That's not like the tones of everybody. And they cut that scene for a good reason because, it's just the teacher saying,
that's
hey.
absolutely not expulsion worthy at all in the slightest.
The point, not even really Bart Simpson's levels.
Suspension worthy. That's barely even detention worthy.
That's what I'm saying. It's again, it was an accusation, and it was, I knew it was you. It was regardless. It just feels like it's not like a Max Goof story, like he did a Powerline concert in the gym or something. It's Anyway,
I totally agree with Tom B's point here. He says, I don't get why Alan's dad is mad at him for selling action figures. He did it to help them get money for the family, not for himself.
Okay, so that's my next point I was going to make, I swear to you. Yeah, the war toys thing is very much conveniency of just, they have some conveniencies in the movie, the biggest one being Dad has a no war toys policy. Why would he have a no war toys policy?
That is so stupid.
It's kids love G.I. Joe. I know
kids love G.I. Joes, and also military stuff just in general is really popular with thrift stores. I should know. I work in one.
Plus, I mean, even if you're looking at an old school toy store, it's think about the Westerns,
yeah.
This is at a time where we could actually have fake guns before we got out.
It's just a total, I don't know.
Anyway.
Why is this movie so disappointing on a rewatch, Dragon?
Again, Tiki, the toy stuff is great. Just the human stuff.
I know, but it's
that's what
God damn it, it's frustrating because I feel like the other three movies that we talked about, they all had their flaws, but more or less, I feel like there wasn't nearly as much stuff to pick apart.
Doesn't it feel let me ask you this, doesn't it feel because one of the Joe Dante-isms has kind of hamstrung us here, where we're in the small Ohio town. I think it's in Ohio. We're in a small Ohio town, Columbus, Ohio, sort of thing, where we have essentially a Hallmark toy store. The inner child store, which again is an old school thing, which basically is our excuse for basically we're teeing things up because we need a specialty item be brought in that would cause trouble, and that would be a thing, it'd be just one thing brought in, Dad wouldn't know about it. So again, we're engineering a lot of things just to get the Commandos in there. But it feels like if this were being made now, or Joe Dante did not force this location, it might have been okay, maybe the father's a franchise owner, a Walmart or something, or a bigger toy store, a name brand, a KB Toys at the time sort of thing. And they get brought in, then that's not. It feels like it might have been an actual big toy store versus the little humble corner Hallmarky job.
Yeah.
I don't know. So my point is we're forcing a lot of setup, and that's kind of reflecting bad on on dear old Dad, let's say, on a lot of things. But regardless, it's forcing pieces into play for our story for the Commandos to break out and then basically get going. Now I'm going to say this though, with those conveniencies in mind, with what gets us from point A to point B, I think a thing that really legitimizes the whole no war toys thing. It's the whole basically our premise for our story. What gets the Commandos in there? Dick Miller.
Oh yeah. Let's talk Dick Miller because this is definitely one of his better roles.
Probably, I gotta be honest. I mean, I love him as Murray Futterman. This is probably my favorite Dick Miller role. I mean, there's a lot.
Greg, my favorite thing about how Dante uses Dick Miller is, at least as far as through the 4 films that we've seen.
What do you got?
Is that he's always kind of this curmudgeonly, almost reluctant father figure.
Yeah, exactly. And I got some vibes of that here too.
Totally.
That's the thing. I marvel. Dick Miller was always that legitimizing. He always had the magic and the charm factor at play. Actually, I learned Dick Miller, the reason he worked with Joe Dante in the first place is whatever the first thing Joe Dante worked on was, he went to Dick Miller, who again was a B-movie guy through all of his life, just kind of a character actor. He just kind of showed up for things. And because Joe Dante knew who he was, because Dick Miller was he was a no-name in the industry. It's the fact they went to him Dick Miller, would you please do our movie? He's I don't even need to read the part. I'm going to do it.
Sure, sure.
It's just like he was just so darn flattered, and he loves hanging out with Joe Dante. Anyways, the fact that he's brought Joe, and of course we're calling him Joe too, very cyclical.
Oh yeah,
So,
oh yeah.
so Joe, here's the magic.
There is some cyclical qualities with Joe Dante's career here. We have the Gizmo running gag.
Mm-hmm. Oh, for sure. Gizmo being the magic word that opens all the chaos. So there's the fact it's like the charm is like the friendly driver who has like this Tiki, which sells me and elates my heart. Like all my nostalgia just already after the opening, but all of it flowed back even further with Dick Miller's scene here on the truck, where he says, like, what are they like? What's in the boxes? Let's find out. It's like, oh, the movie magic at play. Oh
my God, yeah.
He's unloading them. Like, this would never happen in real life, but it's delightful. They open up the toys and they're looking at me. And the fact that literally Joe, the driver here, he activates Major Chip Hazard. He says 10 Hut. So that kickstarts the whole movie. He turns him on.
Totally.
Oh, it's great. And the fact that the idea is like this is like a guy much like the real Dick Miller's been around. It's like that grandfatherly mentor quality to him. Where again, Alan has been for reasons that do not make a lot of sense, but just taking it as it lands. Alan has been labeled a troublemaker. Dick Miller is like the cool version of the troublemaker. So, Alan's striking this deal with kind of a kindred spirit in the whole, well, I mean, you mean to tell me an order's never fallen off the truck? It's just like, I don't like your tone.
I like that beat. I like that beat. It's like, like Dick Miller just didn't, yeah, you're right. But I don't like your tone.
It's too
because
loud.
It's too loud.
Oh, I love him so much. It's like, oh my God, my heart just flutters for Dick Miller. And that's it. Like, yes. Oh, and that whole good luck kid. It's just absolutely just wonderful, and just the respectability that brings it. And the fact that I think he respects that, as Tom Beast brought up, Alan made his reasons quite clear to why he wants to sell the war toys. Like he wants to not make money for himself, but to make money for the store and kind of do right by his father. I think Joe respects that, and that's why he does it.
Totally.
Beautiful. So again, just a lot of love to Joe. Anyway, should we run through the Commandos?
Yeah, let's do it. Let's run through the roll call. I honestly really love like all these characters. I think it's a great arsenal.
Yes, of course. I love the box opening bit too, and in the store we pay off the commercial, and I love the designs on all of them, and the fact that again you could buy these made to scale, and it's basically what if GI Joes were better and had better and more memorable designs. Ironically, a little fun fact: outside of Tommy Lee Jones, the actors from the Dirty Dozen essentially make up the rest of the Commando elite.
And also, yeah, Tommy Lee Jones I mean, he was born to play this role, Dragon. This is like, he is just, oh my God, he could do this role with his hands tied behind his back. It
feels like, what if you took Gaston and you mixed him with R. Lee Ermey from Full Metal Jacket?
Totally.
It's like, what if you blended them together? Because you just have this guy who is it's a little bit like he was in The Fugitive, just more sinister, where it's like, you have an authority figure who, again, like Gaston, is like framed traditionally. Oh, he's the good guy. One would think looking from the outside, but he is just he's so single-minded and mirthless in like Gorgon Knights scum die. He's all like gun ho of like the military commander. We're gonna kill them all. Hoorah! Then we have the rest of our guys. I think what we should probably do here is maybe highlight the big memorable sequences with certain, at least two of these characters. Like for example, Brick Bazooka. He has the bike chase scene.
Mm-hmm.
Love that as a kid. I don't know about you. I mean, it was so well staged and the tension.
No, it's really good. Yeah, just the fact that all this tension is just coming from this little action figure climbing his way up a bike,
I know. And this was like when the whole like Toy Story in real life quality really dawned on you. Like, oh God, like he's climbing up the bike, and it's like almost like like the truck sequence at the end of Toy Story.
That's the thing, Dragon. That's kind of what got me on this rewatch, was that it was kind of like Act 3 of Toy Story in the middle of the movie.
Yeah. It's the fact that, oh God, he's gonna get archery. He might stab Alan in the leg. What's gonna happen? But also the great George Kennedy, who from the Naked Gun films, he's in there too. He's just playing it really fun. He's like the big lunkhead of the group. And again, I love it. He gets the big. You have to have it in every Army movie. Even in Toy Story, we had a bit like this. We have the man down sequence.
Yes.
But again, hilariously though, loses a leg, and it gets like reasonable tab A and the tab B. Okay, so then we got it. So again, just a few before we get to the other biggie. We have like a few others that are impressively played by other, kind of classic, like Dirty Dozen kind of roles. Here we have a Butch Meat Hooks played by Jim Brown.
Mm-hmm.
The football player turned actor. We got Link Static, Bruce Dern. Got
I really like Link Static. I really like the fact that I actually kind of think he's got a good arc, like in the background where at first Chip Hazard is probably a little bit dismissive of him, but then he proves to be one of the more valuable members of the team.
Put yourself in for accommodation, soldier.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, I don't know, Dragon. I'd like to think that in the background of this movie, there's like an underdog story happening with this guy.
I agree. I absolutely agree with you there. I'm so glad you picked up on that. Yeah,
I did. I totally did.
And that's the thing. I like that each of the soldiers, they again, to make them more memorable, it helps with the design too. They each have like a memorable aspect to them. Where he's communications. Brick is he's the lunkhead muscle. You got Kip Killigan voiced by Ernst Borgnine. He's got the cigar. Of course, Ernst Borgnine, Mermaid Man from Mermaid Man, Barnacle Boy.
Of course.
Okay, lastly, I'm so glad Tom Beast, this is the other biggie I was alluding to. Tom Beast brings up Nick Nitro. Nick Nitro was the other most memorable part of the movie in terms of our Commando Elite, because he dies. I don't mean just dies like they all die at the end. I mean, no, he graphically dies. Like, oh, God. We kill him via garbage disposal, which is horrific and awesome. It's a lovely here's the thing that kills me about it. Well, kills him more than me, but still kills me about it. Is that you feel the genuine loss on the Commandos in his death scene. Like,
no, you do. I mean, that's the thing, Dragon. It's like I feel like that's probably one of the biggest strengths of this movie, is that as ruthless as the Commandos are, like they all have like not fleshed out personalities, but just enough personality as a unit that you do kind of get attached to them weirdly.
I mean, Tiki, they're again deluded in a far different way than Buzz Lightyear is. They are deluded that they are the hero of their own story here.
Totally, it's like Buzz Lightyear, but gone to a dark extreme.
Well, again, it's kind of, one could say it's in the actual kind of like military, at least the then military, kind of stance of like, yeah.
Like, what if Buzz Lightyear showed up in Andy's room and took everyone as a threat, Dragon?
Well, yeah, basically, what if it was Toy Story 3 brainwash Buzz Lightyear showed up?
Right.
Like, what if he did not get convinced? Oh, local law enforcement. If we didn't have the local law enforcement, if we didn't have that, would have gone really south.
What if he shows up and he sees the local law enforcement, just instantly murders Woody?
Well, okay, well,
now I'm in charge now.
Okay, a little dark for my taste on that front. Let's
well, Woody tried to murder him, to be fair.
He did not try to.
He
He tried to get him stuck behind the desk. He did not.
All right.
Potato Head accused him of murder, though. Anyway, regardless, he did look like a murderer at times in the movie. I will go that far with it, though. You are right. It's like, you dismembered Buzz Lightyear holding his arm, you cannibal freak.
I mean, I'm just saying, like, Potato Head gets some heat in the first movie, but like, if I was in Potato Head's position, I would be both pissed off and scared of Woody.
Yeah, a little bit.
All right.
Anyway, so it's the fact that where was I going with this? All right, but yeah, it's kind of like almost like the military. It's kind of a commentary on the military. Like they think they're the heroes of their own story, where again, like they're the good guys, but they're doing horrific things. One could say, it's a little bit of that. Of course, the autopsy of the skull. Just golly, he pops off the head like you do with an action figure. And he removes the face though. Like, oh god. Anyway, so yeah, I just that. I like that, we upgrade to. I like how we upgrade the weapons. Like there's an early bit where Chip has like he just breaks the plastic gun in two, and throughout the movie, again, kind of the Joe Dante Gremlins effect here is like they're small in stature, and they don't get like full on guns or anything like we actually do in Gremlins. Like we build like one of the Gremlins actually getting a gun, at least in both movies, you have like one bit with a Gremlin with a gun that we build to. Is the fact that the small soldiers they have these dangerous little implements like Nick Nitro. He kind of scratched Alan up with the little buzzsaw, which always like made me wince as a kid. Like,
yeah, right.
So just the fact that, again, like they're armed like little sharp implements, but a lot of them.
Basically like the terrifying equivalent, like the lethal equivalent to your little brother throwing Legos at you.
I mean, yeah, I was thinking more so horrifically. Again, it's kind of like the more palatable, more kind of cool version of Chucky, what he does. But yeah,
But I'm just saying, like, we've all, I don't know about you, Dragon, but I certainly have childhood memories of being, fucking around with people with kids my own age, and then one kid just starts randomly like, it'd be funny, I'm just gonna start throwing Legos.
I never had the Lego thrill.
You never had the throwing Legos thing, and then it was just like basically just like dodging bullets. It's like you knew you weren't gonna get killed, but you knew if one of them hit you, it was gonna hurt.
Yeah, yeah.
All right, anyways.
All right, so Lego peltings aside, let's talk about the Gorgon Knights. So again, so Franklin, main one we got to talk. We got to talk about Archer. So again, the heart of the movie.
I mean, like Frank Langella, man, we could talk until we're blue in the face. I just think, like, just casting that guy, it gives Archer just such a weight of class and dignity to him.
I mean, yeah, absolutely. And you know what's funny though? Again, they're all kind of He-Man inspired, which I never thought of until I kind of look back on it. Like, yeah, they are kind of like the He-Man toy line inspired. Like, what it basically Archer's like the battle cat, but as like a walking character.
Uh-huh.
But yeah, I just here's the thing with the Gorgons. We didn't lean into it too hard, but what we do have, and we mainly do with Archer, is that there is an existential a layer to these characters that is quite fascinating. That these guys were initially supposed to be the heroes of their own toy line, and they were repurposed to be essentially bad guys, but they're not bad. So I love like the DNA of what Irwin set out to do persisted with these characters. Like I don't know how much of a hand he had in that or whatnot. I don't know if it's possible even, but it's the fact that the initial learning, like helpful, like nice guy intents, it just added like a layer of sadness that these guys are cursed to lose and hide for all their lives. And they should be the heroes, but they're persecuted. Like it's like the X-Men, they're persecuted because they're different, they're monster-y looking.
And that they're literally like programmed into their DNA to go through that cycle.
Yeah, and like they think of themselves as trash, which is why they hide in the trash. So that's really fascinating to me. And you have like it's basically Archer ultimately is like with the dynamic he has now, he's like a more stoic and kind of like Langella sounding version of Gizmo. Like what?
Totally.
It's like not as developed as the whole Gizmo.
No, but it is a very similar role as far as like the kid develops the bond and helps and helps them along the way.
Yeah, I do call BS on the whole. Like he's doing the Michigan J Frog thing with him. Like he's not talking in front of the parents or anything. I kind of call BS on that. But regardless, we need it for plot reasons. Yeah, I mean, I love that. I just love that the Gorgon Knights are looking for a home that doesn't exist. And we have that beautiful scene where they're talking about what's beyond, like, well, you can't see Gorgon, right? Well, just because you can't see it doesn't mean it's not there. Like, what's beyond, what's outside the window? Like, street, like farm, like, and beyond that, I don't know. Gorgon. It's a nice scene.
All right. I'm sorry. I'm really sorry. There's literally not a single supporting Gorgon Knight that I like.
Really? Not a you did okay, let me ask, what about Slamfist? Not really? Not even him.
The big guy?
Yeah, the Quasimodo looking guy, yeah.
He's fine, I guess. I honestly think it might be a situation of Archer being such a well-developed and character with a really cool design. I do think that a lot of the comic relief in this movie stems from these guys, and I just think it throws off the tone because Archer is so stoic, and I feel like most of the other ones are really silly, and it's hard to take the Gorgon Knights like as a whole seriously because of that.
Well, I'm going to say I do think, I mean, out of the bunch, I mean, Slamfist got like the most, because I remember like feeling like a genuine swell of empathy, like when the Commandos came alive and they're going to hunt down the Gorgon Knight scum. Just the fact that the fact they went, oh, it's like, oh no, these poor guys, they're gonna get attacked, and one of them actually got the other guy. I feel sympathy for Troglodyte. He got dismembered. And they repaired him with a radio.
Uh-huh.
So that's what I'm saying. I mean, I don't know. I think you're right. They're not developed. But I don't know. I just think aesthetically, as I mentioned, I think just the whole backstory thing really works for him. But beyond that, it's kind of Joe Dante. You know what? Ultimately, the vibe is on all these guys for me. It's like, what if Sid's Mutant Toys? Just kind of like it's kind of like.
Yeah, I mean that's a decent comparison for sure.
Yeah, I don't know. It's just the fact that we gave him a little bit more vocally to do than we did, the Mutant Toys. Though, it's the fact that like Akio's looking at kind of the.
Dragon, let me put it this way: like as a toy line. I would absolutely buy an Archer toy. Archer is an awesome design for an action figure.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Literally anyone else, I feel like it's a just meh.
Well,
like,
the completionist in me, honestly, here's the thing. When I was a kid, though, like the Commandos, obviously,
but Dragon, the completionist in me wants all the Commandos, though. That's the thing. I feel like that's the difference. Like with the Gorgon Knights, I literally just want Archer, and with the Commandos, I think just design wise, they work so much better as a unit.
I don't, Tiki. That's the last thing I'm gonna say on it. Really, was that I'm with you in that the Commandos obviously are the superior design. They are really cool and diverse, and you want them instant, especially Nick Nitro. But I want the life-size Nick Nitro, not the little guy. Regardless, I had the only other figure I had of the three large-scale ones. You had Chip Hazard, you had Archer, and Slam Fist. And that's what I'm saying is that I like the Gorgon Knights because they were the oddball designs. Like the one, like it was like what you couldn't have. It was like the rhino looking, Scratch It, I believe. Scratch It, Punch It. Anyway, yeah, I don't know. It's like the fact they had like really cool monstery designs that harken back to kind of like the Joe Dante sort of like like the B movie monster thing. When you look back on it, I don't know. There's like a kind of a cool like monstery element to it, but you're not wrong. Okay, so real quick, so we don't just so he doesn't get swept in because he's been in all the films so far, along with Dick Miller, Picardo, Robert Picardo.
Uh-huh.
He plays mixture exposition, but it was a great, intense like way he delivered that exposition. Man. He's like in the hazmat suit and everything in the clean room, and he's like just laying out like no, there's a problem with your software. It's not artificial intelligence; it's actual intelligence.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, it's Picardo just doing some good expositions, and I've always a cute way to work him in. We have some comments. We should probably
yeah. A lot of comments here. Okay, Nick Nitro is my favorite. I love the explosive experts like Rico from the Penguins of Madagascar and Scorch from Star Wars Republic Commando.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see. He says, what's creepy is that all these Gwendy dolls have Nick's personalities. They're basically Nick Nitro in women's bodies.
Now, Atomic Beast, so interesting you bring that because that never occurred to me until I read that comment that, oh my God, yeah, because they use this chip. I mean, it's entirely possible.
More or less, yeah.
They're all retrofitted to be military, and they are definitely screwed up. So, I mean, let's just talk about the Gwendys, just period. Gwendys, for me, legitimately the scariest scene in the movie.
I think they are probably the most memorable scene in the movie. I would attest to that.
I mean, they're memorable in the sense I kind of want to forget that scene, but yeah, it's memorable.
No, but I'm just saying, like, the imagery of it, it's very much the most Joe Dante moment in the movie, for sure, I think.
And it's Joe Dante in, like, looking back to kind of the Corman, even Russ Meyer to a degree, with just how they're sexualized, kind of. It's, like, weird, like, Bride of Frankenstein way. I just love that he's kind of going back to Bride of Frankenstein, but with like kind of like Barbie dolls, and it's kind of creepy.
Yeah. And then let's see, Atomic Beast. I'm not going to read out this whole comment, but he's basically making a point about how the Gorgon Knights look like the evil monsters, and then the Commandos look like GI Joes, and it's kind of like ironic. It's like, hey, things aren't always, don't judge a book by its cover, sort of deal.
Another Joe Dante bingo thing. Insaniac spins like the Tasmanian Devils.
Right. He says, he says, I like Insaniac and
Troglocon.
Yeah, Insaniac for his craziness and gleefully gunning down the Commandos.
Yeah, I mean, they took half of his body. He's going to gleefully, he's going to mow him down. Like, I shot down Chip Hazard's helicopter. Yay for me. Yeah,
okay, what else?
Okay, let's see. Let's see. It was with the Gwendys. We did a number on the Fimple family with with Christie's family and everything. We hog-tied little Timmy,
and then we literally just drug the parents just straight up.
Yeah, with little Timmy though. Again, we have like the sister forced to take her brother to the toy store, kind of like the movie thing we had Matinee.
Mm-hmm.
Let's get to the third act. Do you want to get to the house battle or the big chase?
Dragon, I've got to be honest with you. My energy level's kind of waning here, and this is going over an hour, so I just kind of want to wrap it up as quick as we can, honestly. I'm sorry.
Right. Okay. All right. Okay, let me think. All right. But yeah, so just in general, let me round things out a little bit here. It's a little highlight reel. One of the best uses of war was good for during that chase sequence. Just so I can say, is it was a big nostalgic kind of like call out for me during that sequence. Very enthralling. Like I remember you mentioning once, like as a kid, that you had those like the Aladdin ride, like the Aladdin magic carpet scene. You're kind of going through almost as if it were a theme park. Right? I kind of had that with the big
Sure,
chase.
yeah.
Yeah. But regardless, so of course, we have this epic house battle that's going on. Everyone's like caught in the loop and everything. It's an insane situation, very kind of Gremlin-y, kind of Joe Dante here, where like mom's like throwing back, and that's not her kitchen, mind you, but she's tossing back fireballs. We're shooting nail guns as machine guns. It's insane. Then we have the EMP climax, which is my favorite part of the film. I love Tiki, the most nostalgic in every single way imaginable, like the best sort scene in the movie for me, the most inspiring scene of this whole film is Archer's been inspired by Alan and all the Gorgon Knights by proxy. Like they're fighting their battles for a change. They're not going to lose and just resign themselves to failure. Alan's up there trying to like do the EMP plan with the transformer. Archer he lives up to his namesake. He fires an arrow essentially.
The dude does have a crossbow, so he should fire an arrow at some point in the movie. That only makes sense.
I love that we built that up though. I love that again. Like it just builds to this awesome heroic moment that the friendship is paid off.
Chekhov's arrow.
Yes. It goes up there, and then we take the Jerry Goldsmith score never sounded so good until this sequence, man. It's just like, oh god, he grapples up there. Chip Hazard's like stabbing Alan's hands as he's like trying to get up there, and he just appears there, and like the two of them finally square up, like the poster and everything. These two and their toy lines have been built up to be the ones that are fighting each other and all the packaging, the He-Man and the Skeletor, if you will. So just they have their conflict there. They're fighting. It gets stabbed in the leg, and of course, when poor Archer gets kicked off the thing, Alan's had enough. He basically uses Chip Hazard as a conduit and fries him so horrifically. Dear God. Like, no mercy, the eye pops out and everything. It's freaky.
We kind of like Chip Hazard too. It's like he's not a good guy, but we like him.
I was amazed that he survived that ravine. In the
yeah.
It was like, oh god, he's like holding Dick Miller hostage. Like Chip Hazard came back with a vengeance when he brought like a whole shipment's worth of Commandos back. It was yeah. So again, ultimately in the end, and we already kind of talked about Mars showing up and writing everybody checks, which is priceless.
That's honestly probably the single best gag in the movie, I think.
Oh, for sure. And again, the fact that he's I never caught this until this watch here, because I always remember he had a line as a kid, but the implications never dawned on me. Like, how much are we charging for these things? $80. This is like, add a couple more zeros to that. They're gonna be fighting and they're gonna surprise some people in South America. It's like, oh god, it's sequel territory, folks. Wow.
Yep.
But seriously,
it's basically the whole idea of like the Jurassic Park dinosaurs in war, except it actually makes sense and is feasible.
Mm-hmm. Now, the ending of the film is quite nice. How do you feel about the ending? Just the whole
I really, really like it from a sentimental point of view. I just don't like that they end on a joke. That's literally the one thing that I have kind of an issue with. I really like the whole idea of, tying back the whole just because you can't see it doesn't mean it's not there. The whole idea of the Gorgon Knights going out to look for Gorgon, even though we know they're not going to find it, but it's kind of like the spiritual journey, if you will, the symbolic journey. Like I said, Trey, I'm just not crazy about the fact that we literally end on a joke and not kind of a lame joke at that.
Well, I don't know. It could have been worse.
I hope we do hit an iceberg because remember Titanic?
Yeah, look, it's not great, but it could have been a lot worse.
Hey kids, do you know that Titanic was a thing a year ago?
All right, regardless, it's a very 90s film, Tiki. What do you want? But seriously though, it's a really.
I'm just saying that's what we go out on, man. It's literally what we go out on. Like that's your fucking credits moment.
I mean, I like that we had like this old school boat that was set up that got broken in the toy store.
No, I do like the setup with the boat. Yeah.
Yeah, it's the fact that now the war's over. They're on a peaceful sailing expedition. They're in Yosemite Park, but you know what? I don't think it's geographically possible. You know what? I'm hoping they end up in Oregon. Just put a G in front of it. That's what I'm hoping. That's what I'm hoping. It's not going to happen. But again, I like that we don't know. Like it's just the fact they're sailing off. We don't know what they're going to find. Whatever they're going to find.
Yeah.
It'll be peaceful, I'm sure. They got lithium batteries. They'll never go dead. At least they're not supposed to.
All right.
For many years. But regardless, it's nice. All right.
All right, so yeah, Dragon, this is probably 4 out of 4 when it comes to the Dante month. I think Matinee was clearly like the highlight for both of us, right?
Yeah. I mean, I've always loved Matinee. I mean, I deeply love Grim. None of them were really a miss. I mean, I think technically Small Soldiers has the most problems of the four, technically.
I really, really like Gremlins 2 just because I feel like Gremlins 2 knows what it is more than Small Soldiers does.
I think Gremlins 2 is like his biggest success, but again, critically though, again, Matinee though, it's Matinee just comes together and holds up tremendously well.
And then Looney Tunes Back in Action, we already kind of made the point of like the human stuff in that movie is hit or miss, but the Looney Tune stuff is just fucking fantastic.
Oh yeah.
So, all right. Any other final thoughts, Dragon, or should I just get right into the outro here? Of course, big thanks to Aton Beast for joining us this time around.
I mean, again, folks, I kind of made my peace with, I adore the Small Soldiers nostalgically, and again, it just seems like between like half the things we covered here, again, when the gimmick itself, Dante excels at a certain point. Matinee being probably the most well-rounded film of the bunch in that regard, and it's ultimately it was fun looking back on the selection of the Joe Dante stuff. We started strong. He has like the more interesting ones. If we were ever come back to this, I won't say we will, but if we ever do, there's still some interesting ones in the can. But yeah, it was fun looking back on Joe Dante and doing some research on him and just kind of learning a little bit more about him. Just, the kind of the Jersey boy filmmaker did quite well for himself. It's nice.
All right, well, that's all, folks. Until the next screening of our tribute to Dick Miller's biggest fan, where action figures are award-winning actors, and we hog-tie Leonard Maltin when he disagrees with us. On Joe Dante Month.
Good luck, kid.